The idea of the impossible becoming possible is something that has been passed down through various spiritual teachings. In fact, it's something that many believe is central to the nature of God. You've probably heard the phrase, "With God, all things are possible." It's a statement that resonates with so many people because it suggests that the limitations we often place on ourselves and the world around us don't have to be as real as they seem. But have you ever stopped to think about what this actually means for you in a practical sense? What if I told you that not only is this concept real, but it is also available to you in ways you might never have imagined? Imagine for a moment that you and I aren't separate entities at all, that we are deeply connected, more connected than we've ever been led to believe. It's an idea that may challenge the way you perceive yourself and the world. But what if it's true? What if, in a very real way, the divine presence we speak of, the one that is often considered to be distant, unapproachable, or entirely separate from mankind, is actually much closer than we think? So close, in fact, that it is within us, alive and at work in our very being. This isn't just a poetic idea. It's a profound truth rooted in some of the oldest scriptures. Let's dive into this, beginning with the Gospel of John. In this sacred text, we are told that the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. But here's where a slight shift in understanding can completely change the way we view ourselves. The word among is actually a mistranslation. The original Greek uses the word in, not among. This small detail makes all the difference in the world. It suggests that the divine word didn't just exist outside of us or among us, as we often think, but actually within us. The creative power of God, the essence of God, is living within each of us, not as some distant deity, but as a part of who we are. This word that created the universe, that holds all things together, resides in us, and therefore with God, all things are indeed possible. It goes even deeper. If we look at the Gospel of Matthew, we read that with God all things are possible. But then in the Gospel of Mark, the message is expanded. All things are possible to him who believes. It's not just that God can do anything. The message here is that if you believe, you too can tap into that same power. You, as a human being, can align yourself with the very essence of the divine. So what is this divine power? According to this interpretation, it is your imagination. Yes, your imagination. This is no mere mental exercise. This is the very creative force that brought the universe into existence. It's the same power that exists in God and the same power that exists in you. Your imagination is Christ within you, alive and active, guiding you toward your highest potential. Let me ask you this. Can you believe that you can become the person you've always wanted to be? Right now, in this moment, even as you face doubts or setbacks, do you have the courage to imagine yourself as you wish to be? This may sound like a simple exercise, but it's far more than that. If you truly believe in the creative power of your own imagination, you have the ability to change your reality. Your mind can create worlds both real and imagined, and your imagination is the key to manifesting them. But here's where it gets even more interesting. It's not just about imagining something and waiting for it to happen. It's about truly living in the reality of that imagined state. Imagine, for instance, that you wish to be a successful entrepreneur, or a respected artist, or simply a person who is loved and appreciated by everyone you meet. What would your life look like if you were already that person? Can you see it in your mind's eye? Can you feel the emotions, the joy, the pride that would accompany that success? Can you sense the shift that would take place in your life if you could fully embody that version of yourself? That is the essence of what it means to dwell in the state of your wish fulfilled. And this, my friend, is where the power of Christ within you becomes alive. It's not about waiting for external circumstances to change. It's about internally shifting to the state of being that aligns with your desire. When you truly believe you are the person you want to be, everything around you begins to shift in response to that belief. And that is the power of your imagination. The same creative force that created the entire universe is within you, guiding you toward your own personal transformation. So how do you begin? How do you move from mere imagination to actually living in that state? Start by imagining the scene. Picture yourself living the life you desire. Visualize your success, your happiness, your fulfillment. See it clearly in your mind, and then here's the crucial step. Believe it. Believe that what you're imagining is already true, not just as a distant possibility, but as your present reality. This is where faith and imagination meet. In the book of Corinthians, we are reminded that Christ is within us. If we are to truly understand this, we must recognize that Christ isn't a separate figure to be worshipped from afar, but an integral part of who we are. Christ is the imagination itself, the creative power within us. And when we begin to fully comprehend this, we can tap into an unlimited source of creative energy that allows us to shape our lives in ways we never thought possible. It's important to understand that knowing who Christ is, recognizing that the divine imagination lives within you, isn't just a theological idea. It's practical. It's actionable. It's something that can change your life in profound ways. But knowledge alone won't change anything unless you take action on it. Just knowing that your imagination is the creative power in your life is only the first step. You must actively use your imagination to create the life you desire. You have to take what's in your mind and bring it into the world of form. Let's talk about a simple but powerful exercise, assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. If you were to truly believe that your desired outcome had already manifested, how would you feel? What would your emotions be like if you knew without a doubt that your dream had already come true? Imagine the feelings of gratitude, joy, and excitement that would wash over you. These are the feelings you must embody if you want to make your vision a reality. Feel the joy of your success now, in this moment, and let that energy radiate through you. That energy is what will bring your imagined reality into being. This is not a passive process. You must live in the state of your wish fulfilled every day. You must act as if the thing you desire is already yours. This might seem like a leap of faith, but remember, faith is not blind. Faith is the conviction that your imagination is powerful enough to create your reality. It is the belief that your inner world can shape your outer world. And once you truly believe this, you will see the world around you begin to change. I know from personal experience that this works. When you embody the state of your wish fulfilled, it begins to take shape in your life. But here's the catch. You must persist. Just as with any creative process, it takes time and dedication. If you imagine something today, don't expect it to materialize overnight. But if you stay faithful to your vision, if you remain true to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you will see it become a reality. Now you might be wondering, what if it doesn't work? What if I imagine something but it doesn't show up in my life the way I expect? The answer lies in your persistence. The universe responds to your belief. If you doubt, if you stop imagining your desired outcome, it will stop. But if you keep your focus, if you continue to live as though it is already true, your imagination will begin to manifest in your physical world. The power of imagination is the greatest creative force known to man. It is the force that shapes not only your life, but the world around you. When you recognize that Christ is in you, and that your imagination is the key to unlocking your potential, everything changes. You are no longer at the mercy of outside circumstances. You are the creator of your own reality. And when you fully understand this, you will never be the same again. So I urge you, take the time to imagine your life as you want it to be. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and dwell in it. Believe that with God, all things are possible, and with you all things are possible too. Because in the end, we are not separate from God. We are one with the divine, and the power to create the life we desire is within us all. Imagine this. Night after night, you close your eyes and drift off to sleep, while fully assuming you are already the person you long to be. Picture yourself, not as you are now, but as the ideal version of yourself, the person you wish to become. You hold this assumption in your mind with absolute certainty. You're living in the feeling of it as though it is already your reality. If you persist in this assumption long enough, eventually reality will conform to it. It may seem like a stretch, but if you follow this path, you will discover that the entire world around you is more malleable than you think. This concept isn't just theoretical, it's rooted in the very fabric of existence. In fact, it's tied to one of the oldest truths known to mankind. In the beginning, we are told, there was the Word, and the Word wasn't just a collection of sounds or letters. The Word was with God, and it was God. The Word, the creative force of the universe, was responsible for everything that exists. Everything, even those things we may not consider lovely or desirable, those are part of the creative expression as well. If God is the creator of all things, then that includes the so-called unlovely things too. It's a fundamental truth we must embrace. All things are created by God, the ultimate creative force, and that force is at work within us. This doesn't mean, however, that we should passively accept everything that happens to us. In fact, we are called to make a choice. We are urged to choose life, to choose the beautiful things, the things that bring us joy, and this is the key. We must stop seeing ourselves as victims of external circumstances, blaming the world or others for our situation. Instead, we must recognize that the power to shape our reality lies within us. It is our own imagination that creates our world, and once we accept this, we can truly begin to create consciously and intentionally. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that our circumstances are determined by forces beyond our control. We may look at the people around us, the society we live in, and believe that our lives are shaped by these external conditions. But the truth is, everything begins in the mind. Your thoughts, your assumptions, and your imagination are the seeds from which everything else grows. So when you find yourself facing obstacles or limitations, ask yourself, what am I imagining? What assumptions am I holding about myself and the world? Because those assumptions are the very foundation of your reality. Let me give you an example. Let's say you desire to be in a loving, fulfilling relationship. You may find yourself thinking, but there's no one in my life who meets the criteria I'm looking for. How can I possibly find someone when I don't even know anyone who fits the bill? This is a common thought, but it's based on the assumption that the external world must change first in order for your desire to manifest. But what if I told you that you don't need to know anyone right now to have the relationship you desire? What if I told you that the only thing you need to do is decide within yourself what kind of person you want to be with, and then live as though that person is already a part of your life? For example, if you want a partner who is loving, committed, and trustworthy, what would it feel like if that person were already in your life? How would you carry yourself if you knew, without a doubt, that you already had the love and companionship you desire? Imagine that feeling. What would you do? Perhaps you would wear a ring on your finger, a symbol of your commitment to each other. Even if that ring was only imagined at first, you would carry yourself as if the relationship is already real, not waiting for the external world to catch up. You would live in the feeling of it, knowing that this imagined reality is just as real as the world around you. Now, when you treat your imagination as real, you are aligning yourself with the creative power within you. Imagination in this context is not just a fantasy or wishful thinking. It is Christ within you, the very force that created the universe, the force that is capable of bringing your dreams to life. When you treat imagination this way, you're acknowledging the divine power within you, and you are actively participating in the creation of your reality. Let's look at the world around us. Every single thing that exists today, everything that is considered real, was once imagined. Think about the technology we use, the buildings we live in, the vehicles that transport us, the clothes we wear. All of these things began as ideas in someone's mind before they were brought into physical existence. In fact, nothing that exists in the world today would be here without someone first imagining it. This is why it's said that all things were made by Him. The Him here is your own imagination, and it is the very force that shapes everything in your life. The clothes you wear, the house you live in, the career you pursue, all of these things were once imagined, and now they are your reality. So here's the challenge. Figure out what you truly want, not what others think you should want, not what society tells you is important, but what you genuinely desire. Ask yourself, what do I want now? And then begin to live as though that desire has already been fulfilled. Don't wait for external circumstances to change first. Assume that what you want is already yours. Imagine the emotions you would feel if it were true. Imagine the joy, the satisfaction, the peace that would come with having what you desire. Then sleep in that assumption, live in, feel it as though it were already a reality. And then wait for the inevitable to happen. You see, when you live in the assumption of the wish fulfilled, reality will start to bend and shift to match that assumption. You may not be able to explain how it happens, but it will happen. The world will begin to reflect your inner state. People and events will show up in your life that help bring your vision to fruition. And here's the beauty of it. No one will be able to see the invisible cause of your success. They will point to the physical circumstances that led to your success, the people you met, the events that transpired, but they won't see the true cause, which is your imagination, the creative power within you. Let me illustrate this with a story. Imagine a young man with a dream. He saw a building, an old building that was for sale, and he had a vision of owning it, but at the time he had no money, no collateral, and no way to purchase the property. But he held on to his vision. He imagined himself owning that building, and in his mind's eye, he saw his family's name on the marquee, not the name of the current owners. He did this every day, imagining it over and over again, living in the assumption that he already owned the building. Then one day, an opportunity appeared. A man came to him and offered to buy the property for him, despite the fact that he had no money. All he needed was the young man's signature, and a series of events began to unfold that led to the acquisition of the property. Over the years, the business grew, and the property appreciated in value. What started as an imagined vision eventually became a tangible reality. And today, that property is worth millions. But none of this would have happened if the young man hadn't first imagined it and remained faithful to that assumption. This is not just a story, it is a true account of how imagination can shape reality. It's my own story. I know because I am part of that family. My brother was the one who imagined this vision into existence, and today, his business continues to thrive, all thanks to the power of imagination. He knows what he wants, and once he decides, he lives as though it's already true. He has mastered the art of living in the assumption of the wish fulfilled, and this is why his life has been so profoundly successful. This is the power of imagination. It is the creative force that shapes your world, that brings your desires into reality. The vision has its appointed time. It will ripen, it will come to fruition. But you must remain faithful to the assumption, even when reason and senses tell you otherwise. If you persist, if you keep imagining and living as though it's already true, you will see it manifest, because as Scripture tells us, God calls things that are not as though they were, and in doing so the unseen becomes seen. So I ask you, what do you want? What is it that you truly desire? Imagine it, live in it, feel it, and wait for it to become your reality. For if you remain faithful to your assumption, that assumption will harden into fact, and when it does, the world will call it real, but you'll know the truth. It all began in your imagination. At a certain point, you don't have to go out searching for opportunities or the right circumstances to align with your goals. Just like my brother didn't go out looking for the person who would make it possible for him to buy the building, you don't have to go searching for the right connections. When you know what you want, and you live in the assumption of it, the world begins to align itself to bring what you need to you. Everything happens through your belief and imagination, and what you need will appear often in ways that seem almost impossible. My brother had no idea who would help him purchase that building. On the day the sale happened, he wasn't looking for a specific person, yet the right individual appeared at just the right moment. At first he thought the offer was a joke, a friendly jest, but the man was serious. He didn't even hesitate to call his father to confirm it. My brother's father was just as stunned, but the decision was made. It wasn't about having the right connections or resources. It was about having a clear vision and trusting that the universe would bring what was necessary to make it happen.
This man, who had no apparent reason to help my brother, became an instrumental part of the success. The deal was made with only signatures, no physical collateral, no money up front. Just trust, imagination, and the assumption that everything would work out. Over the years, that building appreciated in value, and the bank eventually bought it for a much higher price
than what my brother had originally paid. The transaction was tax-free, and the property was worth far more than anyone could have anticipated. It was all a result of the vision and the power of imagination working together to manifest the goal. Now, the question I have for you is this: do you truly believe that with God all things are possible? Do you believe that everything you desire can come to you if you live in the assumption of it? I know that many will scoff at the idea, but I encourage you to prove it to yourself. If you dare to assume tonight that you already have the job you want or that your income has increased, don't worry if the path looks unclear. You may find yourself fired tomorrow, but if you reflect later, you will see that being let go was simply a necessary step that moved you toward the fulfillment of your assumption. Many times I've seen people fired from jobs only to later discover that it was the catalyst they needed to land a better opportunity. It might seem like a setback in the moment, but in reality it's just a step towards something better. Don't let your senses or reason dictate what is possible. If you remain faithful to your assumption, you will find that the world works with you to manifest it. Even if the way forward seems uncertain, trust that everything is working in your favor, guiding you to the place where your assumption will become fact. Let me share an example with you. A few years ago, someone close to me was going through a challenging situation in his career. His job was in jeopardy and the company was on the brink of letting him go. He was told his performance was subpar and that his job might be eliminated. However, he remained calm and chose not to focus on the negative. Instead, he held on to the assumption that everything would work out for the best. Within 48 hours, the company completely reversed its stance. They praised him for something he had done, and suddenly his job was secure. But even after this turn of events, he still didn't feel at ease. He knew that the negative things that had been said could come back to haunt him, and he eventually decided to leave the job anyway. Despite his improved standing, he felt the need to take control of his own destiny. He handed in his resignation, asking for 1 week to get himself together. Now, what happened next was unexpected. As soon as he left the job, he found a better opportunity, a much more lucrative and fulfilling one, almost immediately. If he hadn't trusted in the assumption that everything would work out, he may have never made that leap. This story isn't just an isolated example. It's a reflection of how the law of assumption works. When you live in the assumption that things are already as you want them, you create the path to your desires. It may seem impossible at first, but the world will begin to reorganize itself in ways that you cannot always predict. That's the power of living in the end. The end is where everything begins, and if you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are already setting the wheels in motion. Living in the end means that you don't wait for the external circumstances to catch up. If I wanted to see my name in lights on a marquee, I wouldn't wait for the series of events to unfold that lead to that outcome. I would begin by seeing my name on the marquee in my imagination. I would feel the excitement, the satisfaction, and the joy as if it were already real. I wouldn't worry about how it would happen or when it would happen. I would simply live in the end result. And by doing so, the universe would adjust to bring me exactly what I needed to manifest that imagined reality. Let's take the idea of health as an example. If you want to see someone who is sick recover, don't focus on the steps that would be needed for them to get better. Don't dwell on how the healing will occur or when it will happen. Instead, imagine them already healthy. See them as vibrant, happy, and full of love. In your mind's eye, tell them, "I've never seen you look better," and hear them respond, "I've never felt better." That's the power of imagination at work. Now, you might say that you can't hear these things, but let me ask you, can you hear a song in your mind? If you've ever listened to music, even just once, you can recall the sound of it, you can hear the melody, the rhythm, and the words. If you can recall a song, you can also imagine hearing anything you want. You don't need to hear it audibly in the physical world. You can hear it in your mind, and that's where the magic happens. What you imagine is just as real as what you hear with your physical ears. This ability to imagine and hear what you want in your mind is a powerful tool, and it's all within your control. You can use it for good or ill, but I encourage you to use it for the positive. Whatever you choose to imagine, it will have an impact on your life. This is why I advise you to always use your imagination with love and care, especially when it concerns others. If you imagine only good things for others, you will create good things for yourself as well. The world may not always understand what you're doing or how you're achieving your success. But that's okay. You don't need to explain yourself to anyone. You simply need to believe in the power of your imagination and live in the assumption of your desires. Those who scoff at your methods today may be working for you in the future, and they will have forgotten that they once doubted you. The universe works in mysterious ways, and those who stay true to their vision will always find success. In the end, there is only one creative power in the universe, and that power is God, Christ in you. Christ is not a distant figure separate from you. Christ is the imagination within you. There are not two gods or two lords, there is only one. And this one power is within you, guiding you to become the person you were always meant to be. Scripture tells us that God became man so that man may become God. It may sound incredible, but it's true. The purpose of life is to elevate humanity to its highest potential, to become one with the divine. When you tap into this power within you, you are aligning yourself with the very essence of creation. Tonight, don't just think about your own desires. Think about others as well. You can help lift up a friend or family member, even without their knowledge or consent. If someone you know is struggling, imagine them thriving. Picture them employed, happy and successful. You don't need their approval to do this. The power of your imagination is enough to create change in their life as well. This is the power we all have. It's not something reserved for a select few. It's available to anyone who is willing to believe in it. Put it to the test, and you will see for yourself the incredible power of imagination. You don't need to wait for things to change externally. Simply change your internal assumptions and watch the world around you. Imagine the power of seeing someone you care about succeed, without them even knowing you've helped them along the way. That's exactly what happened with my friend. He had a colleague who was about to lose his job, and my friend didn't wait for the man's future to unfold. Instead, he used the power of imagination to visualize his colleague succeeding. He imagined him gaining better employment, one that offered him $25 more than his current position. When his colleague came to him after a week, he was amazed. He had secured a new job, just as my friend had imagined. He hadn't lost a single day's salary, and he was now earning more than he had in his previous job. This success wasn't by coincidence. It was the direct result of my friend's loving use of imagination on his behalf. Had my friend not taken the time to assume the success of his colleague in his mind, things might have turned out differently. If he hadn't visualized the promotion, the man might have walked into that job search without confidence and would have likely faced rejection. Instead, by living in the assumption that the outcome would be positive, he attracted that very outcome. The truth is, we all create our reality by living in our assumptions. If you walk into a situation believing that you're inadequate, others will see you the same way. But if you walk in with the assumption that you are already successful, others will mirror that belief. This concept isn't new. It's all about living in the assumption that what you desire has already come to pass, regardless of the external circumstances. This idea is not just about career or financial success. It applies to everything in life, even when it comes to the most significant and profound claims, like the idea of one's divine identity. The story of the biblical Jesus is a prime example of this, as it touches on one of the deepest, most profound aspects of self-realization. When Jesus claimed to be God, many of the religious leaders at the time were outraged. They called him blasphemous, because in their view, no human being could claim such a title. But in the Gospel of John, Jesus points to a passage in their own scripture where God calls humans gods and sons of the Most High. This wasn't a new claim. It was a reminder that we too are capable of embodying that divine nature. When you make the bold claim that you are one with God, you are not being blasphemous. Rather, you are recognizing the divine spark within yourself. This doesn't mean you go around bragging about it, but you know in your heart that you are one with the divine, that your imagination is the creative power of the universe, and you use that power for good. And in doing so, you live in alignment with your highest self. I know many people who have worked tirelessly to acquire wealth, fame, or status. They may have succeeded by external standards, but without self-respect, those achievements mean very little. As former President Hoover once said, "It's the rise and fall of ideas that will determine the success of individuals, communities, and nations. If a community sees itself as valuable, it will thrive. If a person sees themselves as valuable, they will attract success. It's all about the ideas you hold about yourself and the dignity with which you carry yourself. You may not come from a family with a long lineage or a notable background, but that doesn't mean you can't change the course of your life. You don't need to look to your ancestry to define your worth. In fact, it's best to start right where you are. Your true background is not in your family tree or your past. It's in the divine essence that is within you. You don't have to pay anyone to trace your family's lineage, because your real lineage is rooted in God. You are a child of the divine, and that's all you need to know. My own experience growing up is a perfect example. My mother instilled a deep sense of worth in us, even though we didn't come from wealth or social status. She would remind us that we were God's, even when we didn't fully understand the importance of that statement. She taught us that our name, our legacy was important because of who we were, not because of our family's history, but because we were created in the image of the divine. That sense of self-worth was something she passed down to us, and it's something that has carried me through life. It's not about your external background, but about the internal recognition of your divine nature. The same principle applies to communities too. A community that holds itself in high regard and recognizes its worth will thrive regardless of its past. You don't have to come from a well-established family to be important. The true aristocracy is not about lineage or wealth. It's about recognizing the divine essence within you. You are not just a product of your family history. You are a reflection of God's creation. This principle is true for individuals, families, communities, and even nations. It's all about how you perceive yourself and how you choose to see your place in the world. And when you realize that your true identity is rooted in the divine, you'll find that all limitations fall away. The false ideas that once held you back, whether it's because of your past or your lack of resources, will no longer have power over you. Now let's move beyond the idea of individual success and start thinking on a larger scale. The ultimate mystery of life is that when you awaken to your true identity, you realize you are God. It may sound strange, but it's the truth. The day will come when you awaken to your true nature as the divine. You will realize that you are not just an individual, you're part of something much greater, something eternal. And when you come to this realization, it will not be a shocking experience. You will still be yourself, but you will see yourself as you've never seen before. It's the ultimate spiritual awakening, realizing that you are not separate from God. In fact, you are one with God. You may have heard this truth in different forms, but now is the time to truly accept it. It's not about losing your individuality. It's about recognizing that your individuality is a reflection of the divine nature that resides in all of us. This is the mystery that many spiritual traditions point to, and it is the heart of what I'm sharing with you today. If you believe that Christ dwells within you, then you know that you have the power to create your reality. And when you begin to live in the assumption that you are already the person you want to be, everything in your world will begin to shift to reflect that assumption. As I've shared with you tonight, the power to create your world lies within you. It's in your imagination, in your assumptions, and in your ability to hold steadfast to your vision of yourself. You don't need to wait for the world to change. You have the power to change it from within. The key is to remain faithful to your assumptions. Live in the end result and allow the universe to bring it into being. This is the power of imagination. This is the power of God within you, and when you fully accept this truth, you will find that all things are possible. In an extraordinary experience, a woman turned to me laughing as she looked me directly in the eyes. With a knowing smile, she remarked, "You mean Neville is God?" And to my surprise, the voice within me answered simply, "Yes." In the act of waking, at that moment I felt something stir within me, a deep, profound connection. The voice spoke, but only I could hear it, as if the words were coming directly from within my being, not from any external source. The voice said, "I laid myself down within you to sleep, and as I slept, I dreamed the dream. The dream was not just any ordinary dream,
but a vision of who we truly are at the core of our being. I understood the moment that phrase was spoken. He is dreaming that he is I. That realization hit me like a wave, and I felt myself pulled into the physical form I was occupying, as though my essence was being drawn into the body that lay in bed. This experience, which felt like something from the spiritual realm, was not painful, it was pure ecstasy. There was no suffering, no agony. I realized then that what was described as the crucifixion was not a painful event at all, but a profound experience of union with the divine. The biblical statement from the Gospel of John, "No one takes my life from me. I lay it down of my own accord. I have the power to lay it down, and the power to take it up again," became alive for me. I understood in that moment that no external force was responsible for the so-called crucifixion. It was a willing act of surrender, a choice to embody and experience the fullness of the divine in human form. I realized that the real crucifixion was not something that happened externally. It was a symbolic representation of the spiritual awakening, of becoming one with God. This experience shifted my entire understanding of the so-called stigmata, the physical marks of suffering and pain often associated with the crucifixion. What I encountered was far from physical wounds or bloodshed. There were no nails piercing flesh, no bleeding, no suffering in the traditional sense. Instead, I felt the flow of energy through my body, my hands, my feet, my side, a constant vortex of power. It was pure, unfiltered divine energy coursing through me, and it was an ecstatic experience, not one of anguish. In that moment, I understood that the crucifixion was not about physical torment, but about an internal awakening to the truth of who we are. The symbolism of being nailed to the body, of being bound to earthly existence, was not an act of violence. It was an act of profound spiritual transformation. This is the real meaning of the cross, the willingness to experience the divine fully in human form. The spiritual awakening that comes from realizing the true nature of God within us is an experience that cannot be explained away. It's not something to be taken lightly or reduced to mere historical fact. The Bible is not a collection of secular history. It is a narrative of spiritual truths that unfold within each of us. The whole story is a vision, not a literal recounting of events, but a representation of our own journey towards self-realization and union with the divine. As the voice within me continued to speak, I was reminded of the words of Isaiah, "To whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed?" The arm of the Lord is a symbol of divine power, the force that rises within us when we awaken to the truth of who we are. It is the moment when we step into our authority and begin to rule as the divine being we were always meant to be. This is the true story of the crucifixion, not the murder of a man on a wooden cross, but the act of awakening to our divine potential. It is not a historical event. It is a spiritual truth that happens within us. The world treats the Bible as secular history, but it is far more than that. It is a mystical drama unfolding in the realms above. As Jesus said, "I am from above, you are from below. You are of this world, I am not of this world." The story is not grounded in earthly facts. It is a spiritual journey that transcends time and place. And so the ultimate question arises, what is freedom? Many people think of freedom as the ability to live without constraints, but true freedom comes when we realize that death is not the end. Death here is simply a return to the same world, the same life, but in a restored state. If someone were to die, they would not return as an infant, but as a young adult, restored to their prime age. Any missing parts like hair or teeth would be replaced, and the person would appear as they did in their physical prime, no longer bound by the limitations of age. When a person dies, they are not lost. They are restored to life in a form that is vibrant, youthful, and complete. This is the mystery of resurrection. It is not a collective event, but a personal one. Each individual must undergo their own resurrection, freeing themselves from the bondage of decay and returning to a state of unity with the divine. It is the ultimate transformation, the union with the risen Lord, the recognition that there is only one body, one spirit, one God, and that we are all one with the divine. This is why the world appears dead to those who see it from above. When you see it from the higher perspective, It seems as if everything here is in a state of decay, bound by the limitations of time and mortality, but the truth is that everything here is alive with the divine energy. We are the animating force in this world. Without us, this world would cease to exist as we know it. God is within man, and it is through us that life is sustained. I recall an experience where I found myself at the top of a very tall ladder, looking down at a vast forest below. Within that forest were wild, powerful creatures, lions, tigers, and other beasts, all moving with intense anger. I stood on the top rung, feeling a sense of fear, but then in a flash, I realized that these creatures were not separate from me. They were simply a manifestation of my own creative power. They were frozen in place because I had halted the activity within myself. In that moment, I understood that all the power of the universe was within me, and by changing my internal state, I could stop the external world in its tracks. I came down from the ladder and saw a scene that seemed like a typical Sunday dinner. A family was eating, and the moment I focused my attention on them, I realized that if I could arrest the activity within me, I could freeze them in place. I did just that. The moment I focused on stopping the flow of energy, time itself seemed to freeze. The boy with the soup spoon could not move. The waitress bringing the second course stopped mid-step, and the bird flying in the air froze in mid-flight. It was as if everything had come to a standstill. And then when I released the energy, everything resumed its natural course. This experience taught me a profound lesson about the nature of reality. Everything here is alive with divine energy, but it is also subject to the power of our consciousness. We are the animating force in this world. And when we change our internal state, we can shift the entire external world around us. The world as we know it is ourselves pushed out. The power to create, to alter, and to shape our reality is within. The moment we awaken to this truth, we begin to step into our divine authority and take our rightful place as co-creators with God. The time has come to recognize this truth. The world is not as it seems. It is a reflection of our inner state. And as we change, so too does the world around us. We are not separate from God, but one with the divine. When we live in this truth, everything becomes possible.